Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Coach's Corner, sponsored by Performance Experts Coaching and Leadership 360. As always, I'm your host, Tim Brahim, and here we are in February of 2015, and I'm really honored to have this month's guest in the Coach's Corner. Let me tell you a little bit about Brent Hicks. I spent a week with Brent in November in Costa Rica. He's a part of Leadership 363. So I got to know him very well. And I guess the first word that comes to mind when I think of Brent is giver. I was really blown away by how he showed up down in Costa Rica. I mean, the mantra of that program is very much come down with, you know, the thought in your mind, how am I going to help? And if you do, everybody will benefit in that group. And Brent really led the charge with really getting the masterminding concept going on the very first day down in Costa Rica. He is an incredibly talented and articulate man, and I think you're going to see this in the course of the next hour together. To give you a little bit of a background on Brent, he makes for a very unique interview for many of you that are listening, and you'll understand why in just a moment. He started in the business in 1997. He got out of the business in 2009. So he worked as a loan originator and business owner for 12 years, got out for 5, got back in this last summer in 2014, actually in May, but didn't start originating until August-ish. His peak year, he actually had a couple years that were very similar, was in 2003 and in 2006. Try these numbers on for size. He did $180 million in production. His best year, he did 1,200 loans. With a team of himself and 6 other people. He was the originator, 2 processors, a couple of assistants, and transaction coordinator, etc. He got out for 5 years to pursue other endeavors, and then he recently got back in, and that kind of really makes for a really interesting interview because you've got a gentleman here on the call that has a lot of background knowledge, had to kind of get in and reinvent himself and remake himself. So many of you that are listening to this call that maybe have only been in the business for a half a dozen years or less could really relate to where he's at. So currently he's doing 12 loans a month and peaking certainly as we speak. I mean, continuing to grow because he just started 6 months ago. He's rebuilding his entire book of business. 90% of those are purchases. So he's only doing about a deal a month that's a refi, and then the rest are purchases, and that's been his primary focus, and we're going to talk about that in the call today. Brent, thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule, and welcome.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. Looking forward to the call, my friend, and thank you for all the kind words you said.
You're welcome. It's pretty easy to talk about you, bro. So Stephen Marshall and I were talking on the phone the other day, talking a little bit about his upcoming event in June, and I'm going to be hosting a panel there in Vegas with some top originators on it that I'll be interviewing, and he threw me a softball of a great question to ask, and so I want to give him credit for this question that I realized right away this would be a perfect question to ask Brent. The question is, if you were starting in the business today from scratch, what are 3 things that you'd do first? And it strikes me that that's such a perfect question to ask you because you kind of are just going through that. You're reinventing yourself and restarting in the business with all of this past knowledge. So what are 3 things that you are doing to reinvent yourself?
Good question. And it's really interesting, Tim. When you posed the question just now, it really made me think back that, I had an advantage of just 4.5 years of kind of going through that process and really saying, okay, if I wanted to be able to parachute into any market and start off from scratch, and to be able to say, here's exactly what I did, and here's how I would go about it. So for 4.5 years kind of rattled around in my brain as to if I was going to go back, what would I do differently? And, I spent the last 4.5 years building a direct sales company. And we started 4.5 years ago and have grown to about 30,000 distributors and, maybe $20 million in top-line revenue per year. And in that industry, what I've really learned is, it's not about what you say. It's about how you make people feel at the end of the day. And, Oprah Winfrey said something in her last syndicated episode about 4 years that really struck me. And it's resonated with me and stuck with me in the core as one of the, keys to life. And as I see you, I hear you, and what you say matters. And at the end of the day, I think that's what people really want, right? We all want to be seen and heard and feel like we're made a part of something. So parachuting back in and starting organically, what I realized in the past is I was very good, I was very systematized, I was very good transactionally. What I mean by that is, 1 month I closed 146 actual transactions. And I closed them all on time. I did a great job, but my focus was on the transaction, not the person. We built CRMs, we built, post-close 33 touch campaigns and all these things to create a good transaction. Our focus now is really on the people. First is building an amazing culture. It's finding the right people that believe what we believe. So doing business with people that have the same why as Simon Sinek says. People don't buy what you buy, they buy why you buy it. So one of them is really just finding the people that have the same core value fit. And whether that means it's somebody on my team or it's somebody I'm doing business with, I'm looking for people that I can resonate with in long term. And we're really going deep. We're going deep in the relationship. It's not about doing 1,200 transactions. I'd rather be able to do much fewer transactions and not any transactions, much fewer loans, and really have depth in relationship. And then I've got something very solid that day over day, year over year, week over week, we're by intention building depth in the relationships, therefore building consistency in our income and consistency and really taking it from the commodity aspect. Our real estate agents, referral partners, affinity partners get hit up all day long. So what are the intangibles we can actually focus on that other people aren't, right? Somebody may look at, say, okay, someone did 1,200 transactions and it was because of a letter or a marketing piece. They may see something that we're doing and think that that's the reason why our business is booming, but they won't really know the intention behind it and the relationship and the depth of relationship. So number one, it's focusing on the relationship and people that believe what we believe first and foremost. I mean, that's the most critical piece to us. And we're really starting to see the fruits of our labor over the last couple of months really take hold. Number two, parachuting into a business. And it would be to give yourself the ability to monetize and to be able to create relationships on every aspect of the business. So when we do a loan, there are multiple parties that we come across. What are we doing? What are we doing to vet them? What are we doing to determine whether there's somebody that may be capable of being a good referral partner or affinity partner? Are we reaching out and finding out who the CPA is or the financial advisor, talking to their insurance agent, looking at the agent on the other side of the transaction, and if it's the selling agent that you don't have either, looking them up, finding out what kind of volume they're doing, and having a conversation, talking to them at the beginning of the loan itself. I mean, we call on every single contract that goes in because, one, I want to separate my client from the herd if there are multiple offers, and it's the best time. It's the time that the other agent wants to talk to us. So now I can just introduce myself. Here's who we are. Here's what we're about. Here's how highly qualified our client is, and here's what you can expect. Now we've really set the tone, and we've created an opportunity to have conversation with them. We never pitch them during the loan itself, but it gives us an opportunity to shine, and then they go back in and go set up a coffee, go set up a lunch or just a 5-minute pop-by, and then we're going to go focus on the relationship. We're not going to throw up on them. We're not going to sell them. We're just going to start to build depth in relationships after they've seen what we can do. Again, not trying to be a commodity, and also not focusing on the things that we're supposed to do. Chris Rock says, people want credit for things that they're supposed to do. I take care of my kids. Well, it's like you're supposed to take care of your kids. I've never been to jail. Well, you're not supposed to go to jail. So many times I think, people in our space, their value proposition is we close and fund a loan on time. Well, we're supposed to close and fund a loan on time. That's not something we're supposed to get credit for. If we're not doing it, we're not even in the game. So how do we build depth? Focusing on reading and bringing value. And that would be the number 3 thing, Tim, is really, I don't want to come in bottom up. I want to come in top down. So how do I build credibility? How do I build authority within my space and within my community and within my relationships? What am I reading? How am I growing? What am I contributing back to people? How am I giving? How am I bringing value that's completely outside of the scope of a loan, where I can build authority and respect and trust, and then I can go to the people that can open up doors for me? So that's something that we've really focused in on. We give, and we give without hoping to even receive at first. There's a good book called Give and Take. And Give and Take, I'll boil it down. The premise of it is there's three types of people in the world. There are givers, there are takers, and then there's the 50-50, mutually beneficial relationship. What it says is, takers, sometimes people think takers are the ones that ultimately win in the world, but that's not true. And the 50-50 person, the person that uses, let's find a mutually beneficial relationship, well, they're not necessarily coming from a place of, being genuine. And those that just give, the most connected person in the world was a guy that's in, like Palo Alto or Silicon Valley, and here's a guy that you'd look at, very unassuming. You would never think this guy was connected. And really what it is, he created almost like an EO type of forum where they met every week, and entrepreneurs are coming in, and he was just connecting people. Wasn't saying, give me a piece of your deal, let me help connect you, but I want something. He just connected people for years. And now this gentleman is the most connected person on LinkedIn. He's connected with more billionaires, more guys in the tech world than anybody else, more than Bill Gates. And it's because he gave himself, and he built credibility, built authority. And then when he made a phone call, anyone would take his call, and anyone would look to reciprocate if you asked him for a favor. So that's a big part of our strategy is monetizing and talking to people on all aspects, sifting and sorting to find the right people that fit into our why, building authority, and just building depth in relationships.
So in summary, for everybody who is listening and taking notes and gleaning the wisdom that Brent has just shared, going deeper with few, that's number one. Finding the common denominators and creating depth in relationship rather than scratching the surface with a lot of people, and to just really validate that. One of the things that I think that a lot of my clients are always surprised by, I know that when I told Caleb LeGrand this, on retreat in Costa Rica a year and a half ago, like this huge light bulb went on in his head, and we still talk about it today in our private coaching sessions, was that at my peak of my business, I had 3 real estate agents that were giving me 100% of their business that were top producers. I had 4 that were giving me 100% of the business that were very average producers, meaning like a deal a quarter. I had 2 CPAs giving me business, a life insurance agent, and a stockbroker. That was my entire referral network, yet I was doing 50 to 60 loans a month. And people are often shocked by that. They're like, wait a minute, they counted up and they're like 9 people or whatever it is. I mean, that's it? They expected it to be some huge number. And I used to play the game, Brent, that I'm sure you played and that I know a lot of people on this call play, which is trying to cast the net out there and capture 50 referral partners. Number one is that you're never going to be able to go deep with 50 people. Number 2 is very few of you on this call, I'm certainly one of them, are not versatile enough to really have a meaningful relationship with 50 different people. And then lastly, and most importantly, it's not a lot of fun. I mean, the real joy in this business comes from finding somebody that you can create a graceful and effortless connected relationship with, which is what I had. I had this really nice relationship with those 9, 10 people, whatever it was, to where there was no friction. It was easy. We were friends. We would play golf together. And, that depth of relationship is ultimately what creates joy in the work experience, and subsequently a significant amount of referrals, because people aren't referring to you because you're a commodity, as you said, Brent. They're referring to you because they're your friend. The next thing Brent talked about was cross-selling during the transaction. He's 1,000% correct. I think Greg Frost was kind of the first person to introduce this in the mortgage industry, that on every single deal you've got 5 or 6 different cross-selling opportunities. So every loan you do is an opportunity to meet new people. We won't go into the depth of how to do that, but definitely you should be cultivating relationships on every transaction, or at least attempting to. And then the last thing he said was giving and bringing value to create reciprocity, but not doing it from the perspective of I'm doing this to create reciprocity. I'm just doing it because that's who I am. I'm just going to give and know that what I give will be received and reciprocated by some and maybe not by others, and I'm just going to keep giving and let the rest take care of itself. Really, really great feedback. And by the way, and I don't even know if I mentioned this to you, Brent, I think I mentioned it to you guys in Costa Rica, and I can hit you with the audio on this because I've got it on my phone. A brilliant authority in this area of giving is also Dr. Robert Cialdini, who wrote the book The Power of Persuasion. And he talks a lot about the law of reciprocity and extensive studies that he's done around what happens when you give and how it creates this energetic exchange where people want to reciprocate. It's our human nature to not just want to receive, but to also give back. So really want to validate everything you're saying. So let's distill this down, Brent, now into like a specific segment of the business. I know that right now, you told me the other day in our coaching session that you were just, I think in Colorado, and you were at a convention of realtors, et cetera. I know that realtors are a really big focus for you right now. I mean, as you're rebuilding your business, you're looking at it from a longevity perspective, and maybe even it's a blessing in some ways that you don't have the ability to do as many refis as some of the people do in today's marketplace because you're kind of getting back in. So let's talk about realtors. What are the specific strategies and philosophies that you have in pursuing real estate agents in today's market? And go a little deep with us on this issue.
Perfect. And you actually touched on something that triggered something for me. So back in 2003, we were heavily refinance-centric, right? We were doing tons of mailers and a bunch of other things, again, doing 130, 140 transactions a month. And, we saw the writing on the wall. We saw that the market was going to shift, the rates were going to go away. So I decided I wanted to go big on real estate agents. I hired 3 business development managers, and I took the top 200 agents in Dallas-Fort Worth, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go after 200 of the top agents in DFW. And I got my business development guys out there, trained them, and we did the same thing, right? We went from doing a ton of transactions to try to keep the number of transactions up. And again, reflecting back over the last couple of years and focusing on what I would do different, it was really going deep. It was really the relationships. Realtors are very much a facet of our business that we're highly focused in on. So I believe in masterminding, sharing information, the power of the collective, being willing to be humble enough to be teachable. We can accomplish anything. Think and Grow Rich, right? Napoleon Hill, masterminding. So for years and years, I've had mastermind groups and mortgage mastermind groups and business mastermind groups. Recently, I joined a mastermind group that are all real estate agents. There's about 40 people in this group. They average between $800,000 and $5 million a year in gross commissions. And really, my intention is just to sit and listen and learn, and to be able to share my experiences and the things that I've learned building a couple of businesses and maybe able to impact them. But I really want to understand what it is that they're going through. How do they look at the business? What's the filter in the context in which they see the business? What are the daily trials and tribulations? How are they structured? How are they structured in a single person, a single agent team to, somebody that's got multiple buyer's agents and seller's agents and an ISA or an MSA, and where their lead sources are coming in and how they get their leads to funnel them down, what their scripts are. I mean, just really boiling it down so I understand at the highest level how agents are doing their business. So when I'm working with a handful of people that I want to do business, I can bring value. And I can bring real, actual, live examples and things that I can help them to overcome by bringing in, again, the power of the collective and other people that have gone through what they're going through. So it's less about, hey, I can close and fund a loan on time. It's more about, let me provide value. So the more we learn, the more we can give, and the more authority that we actually have. So it's been a real focus of mine. I've spent a lot of time, and I'll continue to spend a lot of time because, again, I believe that's how we bring value to those, and we create those long-standing relationships that somebody coming in saying, I can do loans for an eighth lower, I can get them closed the day faster, I can do this MSA with you, whatever it is, it's going to be hard to break a relationship where someone's getting value outside of money or the things that we're supposed to do. We're helping people move their business forward and from a place of sincerity.
It's a theme for those that have been listening to this conference calling series now for the year and 2 months that it's been in existence. You heard this from Mike Metz and a year ago, I believe. I believe it was last February that I interviewed Mike. And Brent and Mike happen to be friends as well, and are in the same masterminding group. And I actually know Brent as a result of Mike Metz referring him to me. And you've heard me mention this before as well, which is that, I kind of refer to it as that we're all coaches. One of the major themes of Leadership 360 is that there isn't 2 coaches, Julie Wykes and I, in the program. There are 11 coaches, she and I, and the other 9 people. And that's just a recognition of the abilities and capabilities of the individuals within the program to help each other. So you take this concept a little further, what Brent's really saying, and there's actually a deeper layer to it, which is that he's actually taking the initiative to really up-level the whole concept of bringing value in business development as a quasi-coach to his referral partners. But Mike and I talked about it in the interview, and I've said this in other interviews, that if I was in the business right now, if I were, and I took this role, 15 years ago with my little masterminding groups that I had with real estate agents, but for sure, if I was in the business right now, I would be coaching my referral partners just as I did 15 years ago, whether it be accountants, financial planners, or real estate agents. And you may say, well, but you're a coach, Tim. Well, I wasn't a coach 15 years ago. Brent Hicks is not a coach per se, and he doesn't do it as a profession. Mike Metz is not a coach by profession, but what they're doing is they're understanding that if they want to have a compelling, unique selling proposition, and they want to have a stickiness to the relationship that makes it very difficult for that agent to work with somebody else, that what they can do is go out there and educate themselves not only on some of the very important principles of being a successful real estate agent, but also understanding that many of the things that it takes to be a successful loan originator are cross-applicable to being a successful real estate agent, and then bringing that to the coffee appointments, the lunch appointments, et cetera, et cetera. I guarantee you, if you do that, you're going to have a segment of real estate agents, for sure, that is going to want to work with you because they're going to see the relationship with you is one that has equilibrium. And it actually reminds me of something a really interesting statement that was made to me when I was on my recent trip to India, and I was talking to this wise man, and he said, Tim, he said, in relationships, you cannot have compatibility if you do not have equality. And that would be cross-applicable to all relationships. Now, I really want you to think about that for a minute. What Brent's doing here is he's creating equality. He's not looking at things from a perspective of, can you give me some business, which would be a very inequitable relationship. He's first taking that giver mentality of what can I give in exchange, hopefully, for some business in return, but without being attached necessarily to that as being the result. I'm just going to give, which will bring the relationship to a level of equality that will then forge a compatible relationship that can be long-term. So, Brent, let me toss it back to you and see if you have any response to that. And additionally, maybe you could give us 1 or 2 things that you've learned either from, say, the Leadership 360 retreat or your masterminding with the realtors, or just something that you've read that you've then turned around and simply imparted upon realtors to bring value to them, just so we can get some specific tangibles.
Yeah, this is good. You've really got my mind going, Tim. So, one thing with what you're saying really stuck with me, and a lot of times people overestimate what they can do in a year, and they underestimate what they can accomplish in a decade. That's a saying by Tony Robbins. And we could contribute that to people overestimate what they can do in a month. and underestimate what they can do in a longer period of time. Oftentimes we want instant gratification. Well, I sent somebody an email and they didn't respond. I made a phone call to them, they didn't call me back. I sent them a book. Well, we've got to be long in our thought process, right? I mean, relationships, the maturation process of a relationship takes time, especially when they already have people that they're doing business with, they're happy with. For us, all our goal is to get to a place where they give us the opportunity to give us one loan. Because we believe we can get one, we can get them all. But that's a process, and it may take us years to cultivate a relationship, but it's a meaningful relationship. And what we're so fortunate is in our business is if we get people that are people of influence and authority that have a huge sphere, we may pick up a real estate agent that can send us 4, 5, 6, 7 deals a year. I mean, you may radically change your income. One relationship may be worth over $100,000 a year, $200,000 a year. I mean, isn't that something worth pursuing over a period of time and not just saying, well, they didn't call me back, this doesn't work. So many times in life, I think we, as individuals, we just look for that short term and we just want to find, we have these limiting beliefs that we all had, and I had them, that, again, this doesn't work. Well, it works. It's just we need enough time and be consistent with it and come from the right place. You had asked about, what are a couple of things that I would share, a couple of specific things. During the process, we want to button it up and we want to do all the little meaningful things that make people feel important. So, for instance, every single time someone sends us a referral, we instantly send them a handwritten thank you card. We'll put a scratch-off ticket in it. We don't give it based on a loan or us getting a loan, just every single time we get a referral, no matter who it came from. And then, as soon as we talk to the client, we enter them into our LOS, which then automatically moves them over to our CRM. We write them a handwritten thank you card. If I've got their name and their phone number and I can get their home address, I'm going to send them a thank you card because I haven't earned the right yet for their business. And right now I'm still in that potentially, in that commodity space where they're vetting us against a couple of other people. So how do I start to separate myself? I start to separate it by doing the little things that matter and make them feel important. So I send them a handwritten thank you card right then and there. Every day we're at least sending 5. And if somebody doesn't have 5 people they can send it to, I'm like, go to your Facebook, go see your friends, go see people that maybe had just had a baby, a life event, somebody you haven't talked to in a while. Just write them a handwritten note saying, hey, thinking about you. And something interesting that I learned in the last couple of years was President George Bush Sr., when asked in his memoirs how he was elected president, the one thing that he said got him to become the President of the United States was handwritten notes. And he made a lifetime of writing 10 to 15 of them a day. And he said singularly that's the one thing that he would attribute to becoming the President of the United States. So, by intention, we want to do these little things. We send gifts at time of approval. We send them to their office. We send gifts at time of close. And then, we'll go into this probably a little bit later, the things that we do after close, really, again, to build depth in relationships. Not just being a good transactional person. I don't want someone to come back and say, Brent did a darn good job on my transaction. I want him to say that he was an amazing person. I send everybody in my family, all my friends go to him. I want them to have a reticular activator where they have an emotional reaction when they hear the word finance or mortgage or real estate, not when someone comes to them and says, hey, who did you use for your mortgage? And there's a subtle difference between raving fans and real raving fans. Or really what we're looking for, Tim, is we're looking for disciples. We want people that are going to scream from the rooftops because we made them feel important. So we do that. We also, as we're vetting during the loan itself, we're going to ask, who's your CPA, who's your financial advisor, how would you rate them? If it's a refinance, I still want to know who their real estate agent is, if they have one, and how would they rate them? And if they rate them, a 6 or 7, then we're going to say we've got a 9 or a 10. And I think you should do business with 9 or 10s if you really want to, move forward in life. So we're constantly sifting and sorting, and then we use things like books. We open doors with things like books. We send, little things that will inscribe on the inside, tell them we read something that may have changed our paradigm, And then we don't ask them for their business or anything right there. It's an agent on the other side that looks like they do good business. We're going to have talk to them. We're going to send them a book, and then we'll start the process of building a relationship, not going and throwing up on them and selling in 5 seconds while we close in fund loans on time. Does that make sense?
Let's keep rolling, and I'll pick it up by transitioning us. Are there any specific things that you learned briefly, and then we'll transition to the next question. Are there any specific things that you learned or are learning from either the Leadership 360 program that you can turn around and coach realtors, or that you're learning from this Masterminding group that you've joined, that you can turn around and add value to real estate agents? Can you give us a couple of examples of that?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a ton. For me, a lot of it was around upper limits and limiting beliefs. Going in and working with you, Tim, you really shine a light on a lot of things that I was doing, and a lot of the habits and a lot of the beliefs that I had that I'm sure agents and other people, are going through those same things. I know I connected with a humongous agent by coming back in and sharing some of my experience, and then it changed her life and the way that she was going about her day and being present. So, one of the things that I noticed is, I was really feeling guilty. I was feeling guilty if I wasn't busy during the day, and you really helped me to shine a light on that. Why am I feeling guilty if I'm not 100% working at all times? It's okay for me to have some downtime. It's okay for me to be present. One of the things that I really realized too is I was always multitasking. I felt like I had to multitask, and at times, I used to pride myself, with 3 screens going, and I could multitask as well as anybody. But that created a lot of stress and anxiety in my life, and it created times where I wasn't being present. Someone come in my office and I feel like I could have a half conversation with them, and then I could look at my computer screen because I wanted to multitask. I wanted to get the most out of it. At home, I just wasn't present. I was on my phone or on my computer, or felt like I had to be available to take phone calls at all times. And if I just wasn't working, then I wasn't being productive, and I was robbing the people in my life my time. And here we were spending all this time trying to go deep with our relationships, but we weren't being as deep because with my wife and with my friends, because I was trying to multitask and diminish the time that I spent with them and the value of them. So, really, how do I continue to go deeper with my wife and my relationships and my friends and my employees? You had us read a book, The Big Leap, and The Big Leap, really changed my life. And so many paradigm shifts in that book, aha moments. In the end, one of the things it talked about was Freudian time and, Newton's time. And that really hit me, that, Freudian's vision of time or view of time, his law on time was, time always was, time always is. That simply, we're born and it's a decay process, not Newton's finite time, that we only have so much time. And I know I lived my life the last 40 years under that Newton-type view of time, that, I had to get everything out of it every single day, and it just created the stress and anxiety that if I wanted to slow down for 5 minutes, I just felt guilty that I wasn't getting things done. And those are things that I know I can continue to improve upon, and I can share. I can share with my referral partners and really, again, building depth in relationship, things that all of us as producers go through on a, potentially on a daily basis. I know I'm constantly battling with it. So that was a huge aha for me.
So let me summarize again, and let's dive deeper into this upper limit belief, because I'd like to help continue to unearth this, because these are not things, as you've heard me say before, growth is not an event, it's a process. So it takes a long time to put a limiting belief into place, and it's one that we have in many cases bought into for several decades, and it takes some time to reverse it. What I heard you back to say, just to kind of rewind the clock a little bit, personal handwritten note cards. Okay, you've heard me. If you've ever listened to me before, you've been hearing me say this for years. And I'm going to break it down to a very simple formula for you, everybody listening. 2 a day, 10 a week, 520 a year. If you send out 520 personal handwritten note cards a year to somebody, I don't even care who it is, I promise you will get deals. The reason that a lot of people don't discipline themselves to this simple task is because it's not something that gives you an immediate result. So you can't put a tangible attachment to it. Just trust, from my experience and from the experience of many people who have done this drill, that if you just send out 2 a day, 10 a week, 520 a year, and you're giving, as Brent said earlier, the reciprocity will automatically happen. You don't need to worry about, like, gosh, I haven't gotten any deals yet. You'll get deals indirectly as a result of it. The second thing that Brent said, and I think this is so important what he said, I'm so happy that you brought this up because it's not something that I hear raised very often, Brent, and I think it's critical, is this notion of investing your time into the long-term relationship. You know, I think what happens, Brent, I was sitting in my office one day, I was coaching a client, and afterwards I got to thinking about it. I'm like, you know, it's a trap when we get into this business because most of us, when we first get into this business, we get the immediate gratification because we're getting into the business when we're seeking refis. So we get a lead, and it's just either I got them or I didn't get them. And, you know, it's a pretty short process, right? It's a couple of weeks maybe of calling somebody back and forth, and you either get the client or you don't get the client. Then all of a sudden the refis dry up, and the business model shifts, and the entire concept of relationship shifts. It shifts from a short-term relationship mentality of trying to get that deal, very transactional, to a long-term process. It can at times take 6 months, 9 months, even a year. And we kind of get, you know, spoiled into having this short-term mentality because we got in looking at it from that viewpoint. But, folks, I really want you to think about it this way, as Brent highlighted so perfectly. You know, am I willing to invest the time necessary for 6, 9, 12 months to eventually cultivate a relationship that all I need to do is then nurture? And if I nurture it correctly and provide great service, it's going to be good for 6 to 9 deals every year for, say, the next decade. I mean, it's really, at the end of the day, a very short-term sacrifice and very little time spent to really create something that is an ongoing annuity-based revenue stream versus a one-time paycheck. So you really need to make that shift. The third thing that Brent just mentioned was that he took a concept such as upper limit beliefs, which he got from the Big Leap, and then we deepened very much so in Costa Rica. And believe me, in April, Brent, when you guys are out here, we're really going to go to start to really unearth this stuff with some exercises and go deeper on the upper limit stuff. And he's taking that and he's turning around, recognizing that this is universal to all man and woman, and we all have upper limits beliefs in our consciousness that hold us back from our success. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to share my experiences with it with my referral partners and start a dialogue that is going to open them up to having a deeper relationship with me, and it's going to subsequently be valuable to them, transcend the relationship from being me as a commodity loan officer to me as somebody who I view as a peer, and there's some equality which can then foster compatibility, etc. So what I'm hearing you say, to drill down deeper, Brent, on the upper limit belief, is that the kind of very early on in your description, you said that you used to feel like you had to stay busy. So let's go a little further. I want to ask you a question. What is the story that you told yourself, and probably still tell yourself, I would imagine to this day at times, about what you will either get from being busy or what you may miss out on from not multitasking? Tell me, is it one of those two?
You know, it's definitely the feeling that I'm going to miss out on something. I may miss out on a deal or just miss out on something if I'm not just completely engaged at all times. And really, Tim, you helped me a lot with this when we were in Costa Rica.
Hold on one sec. Let's just slow that down for a minute. Let's not fly through that. This is the meat right now. We're near the core of the onion. So I'm going to miss out on something if I don't continue to stay busy and multitask. So there's fear there. And fear oftentimes drives our frenetic activity. So specifically, what's the story? I'm going to miss out on what?
and you helped me with this, and understanding the real reason was fear, and it was fear that I was going to end up a failure. I grew up in a normal middle class family. We didn't have a lot, but we weren't dead broke. And growing up in that family, I don't know. I just felt like I had to do something. I had to produce. I wanted to break out. But always in the back of my head was, no matter what, at the end of the day, I'm going to end up a failure. And so in order to combat that, what I really realized felt like I needed to stay busy, and I needed to always do more, and I needed to multitask, and fear that I was going to miss out on something, and by missing out on something, that would ultimately create failure. So that's where I've really spent a lot of time, and in Costa Rica and post Costa Rica is trying to break down that wall, and when I feel the need that I've got to stay busy, or I can't let go of my cell phone, I can't turn it off for a couple of hours at dinner, the story starts going off in my head, and I got to stay active, got to stay busy, and I'm working through the fact that I don't have to stay busy, and that I'm not going to end up a failure. That's just the story, and as you so eloquently tell us, change the story. So it's been great to notice it and have awareness, and to start to change the story in my head.
So it still happens, which I'm not surprised to hear that, because there's all kinds of upper limit beliefs that are still happening within me that I'm aware of, and the process is to first have awareness. Like you've heard me say, that's like the first gigantic stride towards the finish line. Is you're 50% of the way there just in having the awareness, which you're already at that point. Now it's a matter of watching, literally being the witnessing presence of that story. So you're out to dinner with Stacy. You start to get fidgety or antsy, and the story starts playing in your head. The tape starts playing of like, oh my God, I wonder if I have any voicemails. I wonder if I've got any emails. And that's all driven by this fear from a long time ago that if I'm complacent, I won't be successful. And then you were validated over time because you got really busy and started multitasking, and next thing you know, you're doing 1,200 units a year in one of the nation's top producing loan originators and making a boatload of money. So it's like the story gets cemented because you then have some type of perceived social truth that, yeah, when I'm busy, I'm successful, okay? But if we're going to really look at this, we need to reverse the question. So the question, or the fear that is rooted in the question, was if I'm not busy, then I might miss out on something. That seems to be the underpinning statement. Would you agree? If I'm not busy, I may miss out.
Absolutely.
Okay. So here's the next question. When you are busy, excessively busy, what do you miss out on?
Sure. I miss out on time. I miss out on being present. I miss out on really everything that I'm spending this time to build, is to give myself a life of purpose, and to be able to contribute back to my family and spend time, have quality of life. So I've built all this up to be able to create wealth, but I really didn't create wealth, right? I created a job. I created income. But it wasn't allowing me to have the wealth that I really wanted, which was the ability to do what I want to do whenever I want to do it, and to be able to spend time with my family and be present, be engaged.
What is ultimate wealth in your definition?
Wealth is, I think it's the freedom of time. Wealth is memories, having the ability to be able to create memories. Having the ability to do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it, right? That's, at least in my mind, that's true wealth. It's not a number in a bank account. When
you're having the ability to do whatever it is that you want to do whenever you want to do it, what's underneath that? Like, what are you really ultimately going for? What is the experience that you're wanting to have? by having that freedom. So in other words, you're creating, so you've defined wealth as having freedom to choose what you want to do with your time. So what's the ultimate experience, in your opinion, as to what you really want to be doing with that time?
And for me, it's just when I'm with my friends or my family, that they get 100% of me. That there's nothing else in my mind, nothing else pulling on me, that I'm able to be 100% there and present and enjoying myself and enjoying the time with them. So whether it's, watching a football game or hanging out or on vacation or just at lunch, that you don't have that nagging feeling that my cell phone's going off, ding, 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 and you feel like you got to constantly pull it out because there's something else going on. I want to be just 100% engaged, and people to look back and say, man, that guy loves and he gives and he's joyful and present.
Yeah.
I ultimately want to be able to be in a place that really at any time too, that Stacy and I can disconnect and say, we created the 4-hour rule. And it was the ability to be able to say in 4 hours we could leave. And this is kind of my process I go through every morning when I do my meditation that I do now and visualization. I visualize this one thing. And it's her and I with our, friends or family, niece, nephew, kid, going and flying and getting on the back of a boat in the Bahamas and really pulling in all of my senses. And it's, the sense of a beautiful sunset and sitting on the back of the boat and you're hearing just the ocean and the calming of your soul. And there is no cell phone. The taste of fresh grilled lobsters or smell of fresh grilled lobsters, maybe the taste of a margarita and the touch of my wife's hand. And knowing that there's no other place on the earth that I want to be where I should be than right there, and having a perfect afternoon or a perfect evening, a perfect day, a perfect weekend. Because, again, I know that there's no other place in the world that I want to be or need to be than right there. So that's what I visualize.
So what I heard you say and all that throughout was connection, love, presence. Those are the elements of the experience that you're trying to create by ultimately having the freedom to choose what you do with your time. So here's the great news that I think you inherently know, and I'm saying this to you and to everybody that's listening, is that ultimately, and you described this really at the beginning of this interview, that's what's going to forge the meaningful, long-lasting relationships that are going to be ultimately beneficial in your business success as well. Like if you can bring that same level of presence, authenticity, love, connection, joy, lacking tension and stress in your being, to a meeting with a real estate agent or a meeting with a client or a meeting with a life insurance agent or a financial planner, they're going to feel it, and they're going to want to spend more time with you, just as Stacy would want to spend more time with you, just as your friends would want to spend more time with you, because this is the universal truth of being human, is that we all really want to connect. So the nature of our mind, and I don't want to go too far off on a tangent here, but I think it's really important to say this. The nature, for all of us to understand, the nature of mind is that it is constantly in movement. It's constantly scanning the landscape, looking for danger. I mean, that's why it's there. Our mind is there to strategize and be in the future to protect us. Evolution created this. There was a point in time where we didn't have that cognitive ability, and we'd walk out of a cave and forage for berries, and we'd get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger because we did not have the cognitive ability to assess. So mind is in movement, and it's important that it is, because if it wasn't, our life expectancy would be a lot shorter. However, if mind is running the show, we can then find ourselves in the state that you have so perfectly described, with 3 computer screens, constantly checking our cell phone and our email and all of that, and the next thing you know, we aren't really connected or present with anybody. So it's important for all of us, myself included, to understand that the nature of our mind is to be in movement. It's why it makes meditation a bit of a challenge for most. And that in order to soothe and pacify the mind, we need to give it a safety net to fall into. So one of the things that I've been coaching clients on a lot lately is really designing your day in blocks of time. So let's hypothetically say, Brent, that you wanted to go have lunch with Stacy today, and you wanted to really be present with her for an hour and a half and just take 90 minutes and kind of decompress a little and just be with your lady. The important thing is that you don't have anything scheduled at 2:30 when that lunch is done if you're going to lunch from 1 to 2:30. Because if you have something scheduled at 2:30, your mind is going to then be constantly in movement during that entire lunch, and you're going to lack the presence that you want to have with her. Or if you have an appointment with a real estate agent for a cup of coffee at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for an hour, and then at 4 o'clock you've got something, and at 5 o'clock you've got something. The mind is going to know, shoot, I hope that this deal isn't blowing up. I wonder how many voicemails I have. I wonder how many emails I have. It's going to be in constant chaos, which is why we want to create these safety nets, that protect our mind, so it can be soothed. So at 2:30, when you're done with the lunch with Stacy, you need to have an hour of time blocked out in your calendar, which is just reaction time for the mind to take care of all of the things that it was worried about. Check the email, check the voicemail, check the text messages, etc. If your mind knows that at 2:30, you're sitting there, you're having your glass of wine with your wife, it's 1:45, your mind starts to go online and you start to wonder and you start to get fidgety and want to reach for the cell phone and just make sure everything's okay, you can then kind of catch it and go, it's all right, in 45 minutes you're going to have a full hour to be able to just make sure everything's okay. And then that can bring you back to the present moment. So just a little exercise. I can go a lot further and deeper on this, and if you want to, bro, in our next coaching session, we can do that. But just to give you a sample of like how important that is. And, the beautiful thing is that you, again, have this awareness of the upper limit belief that, that in order for me to be successful, quote unquote, I need to be busy. The real segue, or the real reframe, if you will, is to really take a look at what the definition of success is, and I think you've done a wonderful job of that. In your view, success is being on the back of that boat with a lobster and a margarita and the people that you love. Success is connection. Success is presence. And carve out blocks of time within your day to give yourself that, so you can feel good about yourself and you can feel the success that you've redesigned. Let's get back for just a couple of minutes in closing to something a little bit more tactical, because I think it's valuable, because I know where you go with this stuff, and I think everybody on the call will really get some great ideas. During the loan process itself, you guys are looking to really give and connect and wow people and create an experience for them, as you described earlier. What are you guys doing during the loan, during the transaction, to market yourselves? What are some of the little special things that you guys do along the way, and maybe even post-closing?
Okay, perfect. And thanks for that nugget. That was great, Tim. Really, that was very profound. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for sharing.
During the process, when we take we talk to the client initially, we're writing a handwritten card. So instantly, as soon as we get off the phone with them, handwritten card goes out. We put a $1 scratch-off ticket in everything. Put a little note on the bottom and just said, hey, let me know how you do. We do that because it creates dialogue, right? They'll come back and say, I didn't win anything, or I won $5 or $10 or $1. And it just creates another touch, another little conversation. Throughout the process, we've built a CRM that allows us to communicate with everybody every step of the way. So we put in the buyer's agent and the seller's agent. We connect with each one of them. When appraisal was ordered, appraisal received, loan submitted to underwriting, approved, clear to close, docs out, loan funded. At time of approval, we're going to send a gift, a Greg Frost type, cookies to their office. So we use a company here that sends warm cookies. And the reason we use warm cookies is in the past I used to send a box of cookies and they'd simply bring them home. So it didn't create the same type of conversation that we want. We send a big balloon that says congratulations. We send it to their office if they work in a workplace that's conducive for us sending it. And we send warm cookies, sometimes with milk, because it's more conducive for sharing. First of all, it's going to create conversation when someone sees a balloon and they see them getting delivered something to their office. And then it's, was it your birthday? What's going on? Well, my loan just physically got approved, and it's my originator send this to me. Have a cookie. And then it creates conversation. Wow, my originator didn't do this for me. So it starts to edify them in front of their peers, and all at the same time, selfishly creating a little bit of conversation. At time of close, we're going to go to their closings typically, and we're going to bring them a closing gift. We gift wrap them. People like getting presents. It's a big day for them. It's exciting. So we're going to bring them a closing gift. And then after the fact, we're going to start to send things. So we've got a post-closing, between letters and emails that drip on them 24 times a year. And that's great, but that's automated. So if I just allow that to run and work in perpetuity, I'll get referrals. I'll get people to come back, but I'm going to get the more transactional, that we did a good job on the transaction on the loan, and more specifically, probably when somebody asks for a referral. So what we want to do is we really want to go deeper. We want to send things when people aren't expecting it. Send them a Valentine's gift. Whether it's a card that, it's got music playing, whether it's a $5 Starbucks card, whether it's a little $10, $15 Valentine's gift, something that just didn't expect. You calendar out, when you're going to do these things that are marketing to your customers, marketing to, a sphere of influence. You're never doing anything based on a deal. You're just marketing to people who have a level of influence that could potentially influence your business, whether it's clients, again, affinity partners. Half of them are people we've never done business with ever. We send them little things at times that they're not expecting anybody to send them anything, because we want to make them feel important. And then through that, we can build depth in relationships. And, hopefully the law of reciprocity does take hold. And as we continue to do it over and over and over and over, then we make an emotional connection. And I think long term, we win. So that's really our process and what we're doing from the beginning to throughout the process when we have them, and then post-closing to continue to create relationships.
No, that's I really love that part. I love all of it, but I really love the part about the cookies. That's what I'm talking about when I say like up-leveling an idea. It's like everybody sends cookies, but like if you don't work on your business a little bit and just kind of take a step back from it and go, okay, how can we make this better? Like what is the process that could really deepen this even further? And sending them warm to where they get shared with everybody in the office. They smell up the office in a good way, gets everybody talking. It's brilliant. Love the Valentine's idea. I'll add to it. I think I mentioned this in Costa Rica. I used to send, my female real estate agents that I worked with flowers, $30 floral arrangement on the Friday before Mother's Day to their office, wishing them a happy Mother's Day, which, is just a nice touch. You get flowers delivered in the office. Everyone wants to know who they're from. Just, gang, everybody listening, think out of the box a little bit like Brent's doing here. I mean, this is a really, really important point he makes. Okay, in 2 minutes or less, give us the numbers. In our last coaching session, we talked about your goal for this year, and it was A+ realtors, A realtors, 100 deals from your past client database, et cetera. Can you give us that? Because I really think everybody needs to hear the precision and the systemization and the strategy that you are employing as a part of your business plan to really make sure that you get yourself to the production numbers that are your goal.
So, the goal over the next 18 to 24 months is $66 million in personal production. And the way that we're going about it is, breaking it down. What we need is 15 A+ disciple referral partners. Now, that's 15 people that can send us, between 6 and 9 deals a year, 6 or 9, loans per year. That could be a CPA, financial advisor, divorce attorney, real estate agent, insurance agent. I mean, anybody that has a sphere that can send that to us, that is in, more of a business environment. And through that, naturally trying to go after 15 A+, we're naturally going to find 15 A's. And so 15 A's are someone that can send us 2 or 3 loans per year. Our average loan size for our branch is about $245,000. My average loan size is about $280,000, $290,000 personally. Now we've got our clients. And for one thing, I don't even want to use the word post, my I don't know.
Past client. You don't want to
past client, yeah. I don't like that nomenclature. Past client is the lowest level person we've done business with. We're looking for disciples, and we'll settle for raving fans. So we're looking to get 15 A+ past clients. So 15 disciple people that we've done business with. They can send us 2 to 3 potential loans per year. And then 100 raving fans, those are A's, that can send us about a half a loan a year. So at the end of the day, I'm really looking for 145 relationships. 115 of those are people that we've already done business with, that we're just continue to mature the relationship. And then really 30 referral partners that are either A or A+. With our A+, we're going to break bread with them and have actual dinner minimum once a quarter. My wife and I, if they're married, we want to have their spouses, because we want to build the relationship with both of them. So at least once a quarter, we're going to have dinner with them. The A's, at least once a quarter, we're going to break some level of bread, whether it's coffee, breakfast, dinner. Sometimes I'll have Stacy come with me, sometimes I won't. We want to stay omnipresent, right? We want to stay not just doing the other little things, but we want to spend time with them. Talk about what we're reading. What did we learn? Not talk about business. Just talk about them. Hear what's going on in their lives and making them feel important, making them feel special. With our clients that we've done business with, we're going to drip on them a couple of times a year. That 115. If they're at A+, I'm going to try to talk to them at least once a quarter. In our database, we keep copious notes of little things, when they went on vacation, where they went on vacation, what their kids' names are, what their favorite candy bar is. If they were going to have a last meal, what would it be? And it gives us context and things to continue to have conversation about. So if they were going to Vail for a skiing trip, next time I talk to them, I'm going to say, how's your vacation at Vail? Because again, it's just remembering those little things about them. And then that's the 15. We're going to talk to them once a quarter. And then at least once a year, we're going to have a conversation, actually twice a year. We're going to have one on their birthday. We call everybody on their birthday. And then we're going to talk to them at least the 1-year mark of when we did their loan and do a review. So that's our game plan.
What I love about it is it's specific, it's designed, it's not by chance. And I pose the question, it's robust, and it could be intimidating to some listening, but what are you doing, those of you that are listening, to create specific goals and specific tangible actions that will lead to the result that you're looking for? He started with the top level, $66 million, but then he backed into the specific things that they're going to be doing with lunches, dinners, coffee, the specific number of people that they're targeting. If you don't have clearly defined goals and your team and you don't know where the finish line is, how are you expected to win the race? And I'll close with this, and it's a metaphor that I've been developing and using in my private coaching with people a lot lately. And I don't think that we talked about this, Brent, so this might be a good one for you. So in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, classic book by Stephen Covey, since we're breaking out classic books with Napoleon Hill and all that today on today's call that Brent brought up, he talks about a metaphor that looks like this. He talks about bringing out a big fishbowl, empty fishbowl, putting it on a desk. He talks about bringing out 3 boxes, one with sand, one with pebbles, and one with rocks. If you pour the sand into the fishbowl and then you pour the pebbles on top of the sand, and then you pour the rocks into the fishbowl on top of the sand and pebbles, it doesn't fit. Now, if you then take everything back out and put it in their separate boxes, sand in the sand box, pebbles in the pebble box, rocks in the rock box, and reverse the order from which you put these contents into the fishbowl. So first you put in the rocks, then you pour the pebbles in, and they start to filtrate their way into the cracks around the rocks. And then you pour the sand in, and it fills in all the gaps around the pebbles and the rocks. All of a sudden, the exact same contents fits into this fishbowl. Now, what's the metaphor? Well, the metaphor is that your calendar is your fishbowl. And the question that I have for you is, are you putting the sand into your calendar first? Or are you putting the rocks into your calendar first? Well, what are the rocks? Well, the rocks would be connecting with your spouse, in the case of this interview with Brent and Stacy. Rocks would be calling on your real estate partners. Rocks would be developing your knowledge of the real estate business to be able to coach and add value to these people. Rocks would be calling on refis right now. Are you looking at those high payoff, high priority activities, and are you putting them strategically into your fishbowl first, as Brent just defined in terms of his $66 million and how he's going to get there? Or are you allowing the sand and the pebbles to go in first, and maybe you get to some of the rocks, and then you leave your office each day going, gosh, I just didn't get as much done today as I really intended to, and you're leaving with frustration and feeling defeated. So something for all of you to ponder. I want to say thank you to you, Brent, for taking the time out of your valuable day to be a part of this interview. You did a wonderful job. Looking forward to seeing you in April here in LA for our next retreat and talking to you later on this month in our coaching session. And thanks again, man, for a great job today.
I appreciate your time. I really enjoyed it, and I just love being part of L360. You've definitely enhanced our lives, and we're grateful for that.
We love having you, brother, and thank you to all of you for listening in, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.